Hello, my quilting friends. My name is Leah Day, and welcome to the Leaf Peepers Quilt Along. Today we're making quarter square triangles, and this is a really neat unit that we're going to be using in our third block for this quilt. So let's get started learning how to prep up our fabrics and make the quarter square triangle unit. So the first step to creating a quarter square triangle starts exactly like a half square triangle. You mark a diagonal line from corner to corner and then stitch a 1/4 inch to either side. Make sure to watch the video on making half square triangles. You can see exactly how I do this. So now I'm going to trim right along that marked line. So I'm just cutting right on that line all the way down, just to cut those apart. Okay, so now I'm going to press the seam allowance open. And I like to finger crease first to flatten that out completely and then hit it with a hot, dry iron. And yes, I think it's perfectly fine to press your seam allowances open like this. I piece with a really small stitch length, 1.5 millimeters, and that is a very tight, secure stitch. So I feel like I can press my seam allowances open, which not only makes the unit more accurate, it also makes it much easier to quilt over later. So now the next step is to take one of these half square triangles and match it with the other color that we're using to turn it into a quarter square triangle. And notice that I am not stopping to trim this up. You want to leave it the nice big size and just place it right on top of that other color. And then for me, it's my background color, my background fabric. And notice how one is bigger than the other. That's perfectly fine too. So I'm going to set it here, and I'm going to mark a new diagonal line running from corner to corner, and I want to line this up just exactly right so it's centered. And we want to mark a new diagonal line from corner to corner right across this block. And this line will also be cut down the middle, so I could just use a regular pencil to mark that line. That way it will be nice and easy to follow. Okay, so we have this line running perpendicular to that first seam line. We're going to take this to the machine and stitch a 1/4 inch to either side of that marked line. So I'm here at the machine, and just a few settings to get us started. I have my machine set to a 1.5 millimeter stitch length and the needle in the down position, and I have a 1/4 inch patchwork foot here attached to the machine. And here on the machine on the front, I have a queen size supreme slider, which is a slippery Teflon sheet. It just helps slide the pieces underneath the foot, just makes it a little smoother and slippier. Slippier. I can't say that. Okay, so we're now stitching right on the edge of that marked line. I'm just lining up the edge of that patchwork foot with the edge of that line. And we only need to do this 2 times for this block. We only need to make 2 sets of quarter square triangles. And we're not even going to use all of them. So this is going to be one of those things that you just want to refer to your pattern, work carefully, work slowly, and make sure that you're using the right units, you're making the right things. Okay, so I've stitched one line. Now I'm going to flip it around. And I'm just lifting up ever so slightly on that presser foot and lining up the edge of that foot with that marked line. I'm also butting up the needle right up against the fabric, so the very next stitch that I take is going to be on the fabric. And I always stitch off onto a little scrap charger just like this. This is just a piece of fabric folded in half, and that just keeps my machine in stitching mode so I don't lose any bobbin thread and the machine doesn't gag whenever I go to piece something else. Just like before, I'm going to cut right on that marked line, right down the middle. And that's going to separate to create 2 quarter square triangles. There we go. So just like with our half square triangles, we are piecing these generously. What that means is we are actually piecing this to be much bigger than it needs to be. So the final step is to trim this up so that way it's the right size. And with these quarter square triangles, that can be a little tricky. So I'm going to give you some tips on trimming these up accurately. So here's how I lined up my piece to trim it down. I've lined up the 45-degree line on the ruler with this smaller, shorter seam on the quarter square triangle. And then I've lined up the corners of the finished size we're going to cut with that seam running in the opposite direction. So make sure to refer to your pattern to know what size to cut this down. We're going to make one cut at a time. So I'm going to make that cut, rotate it, place the ruler back down, line everything back up again. And this is definitely one of those things you want to take your time on, because if you miscut, you'll need to cut another piece of fabric and do it all over again. So here we go. We've got two sides trimmed, and then now we can use more than one thing to square this up. We've got two sides that we can truss. So now what I'm doing is I'm lining up both the finished size on this outer edge and that 45-degree line on that short seam too. So two different things to keep in mind. There we go. Now it's really tempting when you have your ruler right here and it's all lined up and just perfect to go right across. And I'll admit, I used to take that as a shortcut a whole lot, but then I cut myself really badly and I learned my lesson. Rotate the ruler. It takes a few seconds, to line everything back up again, and it's certainly a lot less painful than cutting yourself. So please take your time and cut with your dominant hand, always one side at a time. So that's how you're going to make your quarter square triangles for this block. Just refer to your pattern to know how many to make, and also how to put the rest of your block together. You can find a video that Sherry has made on how to piece this block step by step. And here's what it looked like whenever I finished piecing it. So that's it for this video. I hope you learned a lot and you're going to give these quarter square triangles a try. Now, if you'd like to see how to take this unit with a lot of half square triangles, piece it together to make block number 3, make sure to check out Sherry's video at wholecirclestudio.com. You can see how she's going to piece block number 3 step by step. Now, if you'd like to join in the fun of the Leaf Peepers Quilt Along, all you need to do is pick up a copy of the quilt pattern. You can find it at leahday.com/leaf. Until next time, let's go quilt.